And that's just a baseline for, I think, where consistency starts. It starts with having a goal in mind. It starts with having an objective and a desired outcome.
7 Habits of Highly Effective People.
Boom.
Yeah.
Like, it's hard to be consistent when you're not sure what the point is. What's the point of this anyway? Right? If you're just showing up just to show up, it's going to be easy to say, I don't feel like it today.
Yeah.
But using that workshop, both workshops as an example, I had a clear goal, which was I need people in the space. And beyond just needing people in the space for the event, I need people to book.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, my bottom line was a good reason to keep showing up.
Yeah, we got D and Braxton in the. We got D and Braxton in the. We got D and Braxton in the classroom.
Glad to have you all back again here in the content classroom. We're going to slow you down just a little bit so you can understand that the consistency is the key to change. If you've ever tuned into Ideas Inspire Information, you know that consistency is the key. Well, consistency is probably the thing you want to work on more than even the craft itself, because if you don't know how to do the craft, that means you haven't consistently practiced the craft. D, how are you?
Pretty good.
I'm glad to be here in 2D Filmworks again. It's a great place you created.
That was a great opener.
Hey.
Yeah, that was good. Well, we're here talking all things consistency.
All of
Class is in session.
I think we should ring a bell.
I know, like ding.
Ring my bell.
Or like those classroom bells when in school, like.
Yeah, they've changed over time because
Really?
I was by a school not too long ago, and it was like a ding 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 ding. It wasn't like a. It was like a. Yeah, it was like a.
So low.
It was like an artificial hard bell sound, like a. I can't
That's
I can't get it out right now, but it wasn't a traditional.
No, you need that traditional high stimulation.
Yeah,
like
like,
going to the
oh,
hallways.
like,
It's time to run around
In
the
high
hallways.
school, that bell woke me up
I'm trying
in
to tell
class.
you.
I was trying to leave here.
Yes,
'Cause I ain't
I
learning
know.
nothing in this class. But you going to learn something here in the content classroom.
Yes.
I'm trying to tell you. D, what we talking about today?
We're talking about something that is birthed from your mind, the art of consistency.
Oh, man.
Yeah, absolutely. We're
Yee.
jumping into that.
Let's get in then.
Yeah, so first of all, Art of Consistency is a workshop that you do.
Mm-hmm.
And tell us about it. Tell us about what it is, where it came from, why.
Well, in the beginning of time, God created, and he created an art. And I am the art, just like you. And so in that art form, there are processes in your body that consistently operate. So if you want to do something, you have to consistently do it in order for it to operate correctly. So the Art of Consistency workshop basically was to help people understand that you can be consistent, but there are ways and things that you need to do in order for that consistent structure to run when you need a break. Because we all need breaks. I mean, I'm not going to talk about the 6,000 years, but you need a break in order for you to continue to operate at a high level and be efficient and effective, and still be able to serve whoever you serve. And if you really think about it, we have different forms of industries, but everybody is in the service industry because somebody or something has to be served in order to make revenue, profit, or whatever it is that you're doing. So it's like these lights in here are serving a purpose, and they're inanimate objects.
Right.
So to be consistent for me is to keep going even in times that you cannot and need to take a break. Like there's some areas in life where you can't do some of the things you need to do, but if you put the right processes and systems in place, then they'll keep operating. And so the Art of Consistency really was to start highlighting that and show people that you don't be afraid of the daunting task of seeing content go out every day, but know that, hey, there are things that I can do to lighten that load. And it's a lot different now than it was probably 10 or 15 years ago because we have AI and systems and computers that can do a whole bunch of stuff and schedules and all that. But yeah, that was the art. with that being said as well, the Creative Brunch Mastermind has been a thing for the last couple months. How did you decide that you wanted to start that and build that process?
Absolutely. Well, I wanted to go somewhere else, but we'll stay here for
Okay,
now.
let's do it.
So that really just came from, and I shared this with you. There was no deep thought about it other than the fact that I had this brand new space.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people did not know about it. But the reason a lot of people didn't know about it wasn't because I wasn't going out telling people.
Yeah.
It's because people needed to come and experience the space, right? And my whole thing was, if I'm going to have people in the space, I want to do so strategically. And I know the type of people that I want to rent the space. I know the type of people that I want to service in the space. And I know the mission of this space beyond just rentals. It's also to be a resource hub, which is why I'm so glad to be partnering even with Content Classroom.
Yeah.
A resource hub for creatives, creative entrepreneurs, those who are just learning, those who are, wherever they are on their journey, creatively and entrepreneurially. So I thought, well, let's be strategic here. I need people renting, and I also want to be a resource hub. So how about this? We host a mastermind every month on different topics around entrepreneurship, creativity, all of those things, to get the people that I want to serve in this space to provide valuable resources, introduce them to people like you, and also just meet other creatives in the area while also showing them and showcasing the space. So that's kind of where that was birthed. It has done exactly what I imagined it would do. Small, intimate gatherings where there's a lot of questions, there's a lot of discussion and engagement. And yeah, that's really what we've been doing we've had 2 so far. And we've had it has accomplished what we set out to accomplish, which is to be a space for resources, engagement, discussion, connection, and also like a couple people will come back and rent. So, everybody wins.
Yeah. Before you get into your stuff real quick, I think that was really important how you created a thing with a goal in mind.
Absolutely.
Because a lot of times people create stuff and don't have a goal in mind. So if you have a goal, it becomes a lot easier for you to be consistent in order to do the actions necessary to reach such goal. That's all I had.
No, I love that, because what has for sure made me more adamant about showing up is like having a clear aim and a clear focus and a clear goal. It makes it very easy to say, like, if I don't show up, X, Y, and Z does not happen. Mm-hmm. But if I show up, it makes X, Y, and Z more likely to happen, right? Yeah. If I show up consistently, if I do what it is I know that I can be doing, if my level of input is where it should be, then I'm more likely to hit X, Y, and Z output. So for Art of Consistency and the workshop, for me, a lot of it was like, I got to get the word out. There are people who may come that I don't know. There are people I'm going to invite that I do know, just to have people in the room and have experts that I trust to be giving out information and engaging with each other. But also, like, to get people in the space, I needed to be putting it out. I needed to be talking about it. And so that was part of consistently showing up in order to reach that outcome. And that's just a baseline for, I think, where consistency starts. It starts with having a goal in mind. It starts with having an objective and a desired outcome.
7 Habits of Highly Effective People.
Boom.
Yeah.
Like, it's hard to be consistent when you're not sure what the point is. Mm-hmm. What's the point of this anyway? Right? If you're just showing up just to show up, it's going to be easy to say, I don't feel like it today.
Yeah.
But using both workshops as an example, I had a clear goal, which was I need people in the space. And beyond just needing people in the space for the event, I need people to book.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, my bottom line was a good reason to keep showing up.
Yeah.
But that gets me to my question for you. When it comes to, and I'm going to answer it too, but when it comes to, because consistency is also just a muscle that you build over time, and it gets easier to show up the more that muscle is built. But are there any habits that you have, either professionally or personally, that have contributed to like your consistency muscles? Because after a while, showing up is not hard. when you have that goal and when you've built the muscle to do it?
So for me, I learned consistency in an interesting way. Thinking about it right now allows me to understand how I really learn how to be consistent and the importance of it. I've played golf my whole life. And if you've
Oh.
ever played golf, you understand how important consistency is, because nothing's the same, but the outcome that you want to achieve is always evolving. And so it's being able to operate in uncertain circumstances with unknown ends in order to reach a desired destination.
Yeah.
So being able to continue to do the thing over and over again, not knowing what it will reap in action, because you can keep practicing something and keep doing it, and the desired outcome may not be, but it may not be this time. It may not be the next time. It might not even be the 50th time.
But eventually,
Yeah, so
it's gonna hit.
It's just like that meme that you see with the guys in the dirt
the little
getting
mining
to the
thing.
diamonds and the gold, but the guy leaves right before he gets there.
Yeah.
So keep doing it. And the things that I've done is, so in college, my friend did paintings for all of our friends, and just looking at how things have stacked throughout life for me, I told her to put on mine, keep working. Well, keep working is a structure of consistency. Like, you got to keep doing the thing. And so for me, it's just keep going. Like, there's nothing you can do about the circumstances or anything that you can't tangibly fix or change. So keep doing what you can do, and all the rest will take care of itself, because you did your part.
So when you play in golf, is there a specific thing that you had to learn how to do over and over and over and over again, regardless of the situation? So like, I don't know that much about golf, but I've been to Top Golf like once, and I feel like I would be good at it if I tried. But
you get that out, and then we'll do a Top Golf trip.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm down.
Yeah.
So is there like a specific, when you're learning, like, cause there's a certain way you have to swing.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's a certain way, like, what was the thing that helped you? If there's one thing that you can tangibly point to that said, like, I did this thing so many times that I know what it is to show up.
Patience.
Yeah.
Patience. It has nothing to do with the actuality of the task. It's the mental part. You have to have patience.
Yeah.
To start from somewhere, to see where you want to go and where you can be, and then where you currently are, you got to realize that, hey, I'm not that now, but over time, if I keep doing, I will be. And I'm gonna run into hardships and trials, tribulations, and difficulties. But I have to be able to say, hey, that's still the goal. This is the process in order to reach the goal.
Yeah.
And if you're not okay with the process and the journey, you won't be able to reach the goal because you weren't patient enough to go through the learning phases to get there. So especially in golf, it was me patience. When I was younger, I knew my patience wasn't good now, because I would get upset about things that I've done over and over again, but it didn't work out in action. Like, I need to perform right now, and I didn't. And so my lack of patience and maturity, that showed. As I got older and understood that and developed, it was like, oh, well, I know that this moment doesn't define the total goal.
Yeah.
So let me regroup and do what's necessary to get to where I need to be. And over time, that literally, me understanding that subconsciously, because I definitely understood it subconsciously before I did consciously. My coping mechanism was to go practice more. So if I messed up here, it's like, all right, I already know what I'm practicing later today. It could just be one minor thing that I did, but I understand that, hey, in order to improve this, or for this mistake to be a good mistake, because you can make good mistakes. What John Lewis say, good trouble.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to make good mistakes. And when I learned that making good mistakes in the process to an end goal was necessary, that's when everything just started opening up. Like at that point, I think from 2011 through 15, from late high school into college, I probably won 10 to 12 golf tournaments easily. And that is in between going to school, like being in school.
Yeah.
Like I'm only really playing in the summer because I'm not playing on a golf team. So it's like there are things that you have to learn and you got to take with the roll and the punches
Yeah.
based on your actual end goal and desire.
Yeah. That reminds me of this book that I read probably like 2015, 14-ish, around that same time. It's called The Slight Edge. And I can't remember the name of the author, but
Let's look it up.
it's a great book.
I'm going to put it on the
Look
screen.
it up. Look it up
Slight
if you guys
Edge.
are out there listening. It's called The Slight Edge. And it's literally just about building habits consistently. And there's nothing deep to it. But what you said was, when you were talking about that subconscious mental shift, that was mine. I read this book called The Slight Edge, and it cemented in my mind the concept of doing small things. You may not see the direct impact right away, but it has a compounding effect. Whatever you do, good or bad, has a compounding effect either toward a goal or away from a goal. And that's just the concept of the book. And so, to your point of like that subconscious understanding before it became a conscious like thing you went after, I think I had a similar experience when just reading that book. And I was not undisciplined, but I wasn't as disciplined as I could have been. I was in college, big chillin'. But, like I read that book and it changed everything for me in my mindset around consistency, around showing up, even in the small things. Like you said, like you go out and you practice and you may get one small thing wrong or, like the good mistake, but the next day or the next time you go out, you're going to be working on that one small thing because that one small thing might be the difference in making that whole or whatever, like winning that competition. But it had a compounding effect over time that led to the goal. So that's just my personal story of like that subconscious understanding and mental shift that really pivoted me consciously to showing up and even doing small things consistently. So now it's not hard to show up in bigger ways.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. How would you really like transform that for creatives to say, hey, you want to be able to work with this company or make a feature film or do a brand shoot with this business, but you're not there yet, and you might not even. It's two ways you can look at that. You can say, I'm not there yet on my skill level, or I'm not there yet on my back end preparation structuring level. And then you flip that vice versa. Oh, I can go shoot a brand shoot now for Nike and be cool. But are you prepared to say, hey, I need this other 6 people to do these things, to move these lights in this way, for this whole flow to move? I think that's 2 different forms of being consistent in the development process.
Yeah. So what I would say is, and I've had the pleasure of producing a couple of short films, so I understand it from like a film commercial space.
Yeah.
But also from just product, like shooting products, shooting for brands, photography wise. But what I would say for either one is, what are you doing right now to get the Nike, to get the large commercial shoot, the large production shoot? I know some folks who they shoot a short film a month.
Yeah.
Like their goal is to like shoot a short film a month, and it's not anything major, but what they're doing is they're building those reps. 10,000 hours. I think everybody's probably heard this concept by now. 10,000. So if you do something for 10,000 hours, technically, they say you're considered an expert in that thing, unless you're doing it 10,000 hours wrong.
Yeah.
But the goal is, even in those 10,000 hours, to consistently get better.
Yeah.
So I think about it from like a production standpoint, or like a brand shoot, like a large brand shoot. If you're two things, if you're doing something enough, you'll figure out what works and what doesn't work. You'll figure out how much you can do by yourself and when you're going to need somebody else to come and help you move this or set this up, or, to answer the question about the back end and the actual getting the job or whatever. But there's also this other concept that a lot of creatives do, and a lot of creatives may call it something different. But like spec shoots. So a spec commercial is like, you didn't get hired by that company to shoot it. That company never hired you, but you studied that brand long enough. You see what so take Nike, for example. If we're talking about like a Nike photo shoot, a Nike brand shoot, if you want to get the attention of people who are doing that type of work, then your best bet is to go out there and basically create a spec product for it. Yep. So book a model, find a location, scout the location, do all the prep work leading up to it, creatively direct the shoot some dope work, and then also know how Nike brands their work. So now you're studying the brand that you want to work for and also putting in the reps to practice shooting for a brand like that, right? Mm-hmm. The same thing with commercial work. Pick a brand, pick a company, pick an organization, whoever your goal is, and start creating work that is in line with that organization, that brand, that commercial, whatever. And what you're doing is two things. You're putting in the reps to get good, but you also might start to figure out like, for the type of work that they put out, for the type of shooting that they, the type of production that they put out, I need more than just me. I might need to go out and get a production assistant. I might need to go out and find somebody who can help write this script, because maybe my writing style doesn't match what they typically hire for, right? Mm-hmm. So to answer your question, looking at it both ways, either way, like putting in those reps and studying consistently what it is you're going after. As a shooter, that's what I would do. Even back to like the film thing, like if you take that approach every month, and that don't mean you're getting paid for it. Yeah. Like, you're probably not.
Yeah, it's a lot of stuff you got to do for nothing.
Yeah. But eventually, you're going to be good enough to where you can then use that as leverage and put that in your portfolio and pitch it to brands, I did this spec work, or I created this with your brand in mind.
Now you have it at least sample.
Now you have a work sample. Now you have the skill set. Now you have the back end knowledge to understand, like, I can't do this by myself. This is one that I did by myself, and this is one that I did when I brought in some other people to help. Yeah. You can tell the difference, right?
Yeah.
But it's still starting at a point of like building up those reps at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And that's just showing up, And honestly, that don't have nothing to do with creating content and putting it on your Instagram. I mean, you can, but it don't have nothing to do with marketing. It don't have nothing to do with content creation, the whole thing that people are doing today. That's just getting better at what you do.
Yeah.
That's where I think I would start, like, as a creative, even graphic designers. Like, I follow some graphic design, and I don't do that, but I follow graphic designers that they'll create mock-up graphics for, brands and stuff that they admire. And they'll just study the brand, study the type of work, study the models that they choose, and they'll create like a mock-up for it, and that be what gets them hired, But it's the same concept of putting in those reps for your own work and consistently doing it enough to get better and pull in the type of clients that you really want.
So I got a question in that, and I'll break it down for myself. Being able to stay consistent in your business, your media, and in your craft, because there are parts to it.
Yeah.
In order to be consistent in business, there are things you have to do, but in order to be good enough in the craft to still hold those, you got to still work on that.
Yeah.
But you got the business, the craft, but now
where do you find the time?
Yeah. So now it's like, all right, cool. that I think is why it's important in the media department, which brings the craft and the business together.
Mm-hmm.
Because now I have to market myself, but create the content that I'm marketing.
Mm-hmm.
And now this content that I'm marketing is showing clients what I can do, marketing myself. But this was me by myself. Imagine what I'm going to do with the team for you. Mm-hmm. And it's like you are your own billboard for other companies to say, oh, they keep doing this and they keep doing it well. We're not doing this well. Mm-hmm. Now we need to call. Now this is who we need to be working with to accomplish this goal that we have as a company. Yeah. How do you like do those things?
That's a great question. Well, the reality is, if I'm being honest with you, at some point you got to scale and outsource. Yeah. That's just the reality, especially because you did say too, like, if I can do this by myself, imagine what I can do with the team. Mm-hmm. Well, you don't need the client to start building a team, or to have a team in mind. So an example I'll use is like, I just booked a client for some work, and I already knew who I was going to bring in to do the work. I'm not going to be shooting all this stuff. I'm way too pregnant. I'm way too pregnant, and also, like, I just have a desire to work with other creatives, always. And so my whole thing is like, before I even get to the conversation with the client, I'm already thinking through what does it take to be able to outsource certain things, and what things can I outsource reasonably without losing any money, reasonably with still making a profit. And that's just business, right? So the idea is that you get good enough at your craft to where you get good enough to do the craft, but also to be able to manage people who can do it well. Mm-hmm. Because you don't want to be one of those people that you're good, but you're not good enough to be able to direct someone else, or not good enough. And at some point as creatives, and I don't know how you feel about this, but I believe at some point as creatives, especially creative business owners and creative entrepreneurs, you want to get past the solopreneur stage where you're doing it all yourself. You want to get to a point where you are so good that you can bring in somebody else who will, and this is what you see a lot in like commercial sets, you can bring in somebody else who's going to be the camera operator, even though you're the director of photography. So all you got to do is tell them, line it up like this, get this angle, we need this light. So you know the technicality of what it takes, even though you're not the hands doing it, right? And that's what a lot of creative directors will do too. But to your point, though, it does become a lot. But if you're thinking about your business as something that will scale and grow, as a creative service provider, you also want to be thinking through, all right, this is the type of, in order to outsource X, Y, and Z, I need a client at this point, like this price point. And then I can outsource this piece and still bring in a profit, still pay myself, all of that. And because you're not having to do all the work yourself, you then become the salesperson looking for the next client. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah, 100%.
So then, like, when it comes to that piece of like marketing and all that stuff, like, you the CEO. So if nobody else in the business is going out and getting more clients, it's you. Yeah. So I can get hired, using my example, I can get hired for this job, knowing that I'm not going to shoot it. But I'm going to have the onboarding. There's still things that are within my control as the business owner. Yeah. But I can outsource certain other more technical things for like the shoot day or editing, the things that will take more time. Mm-hmm. But since I'm not doing that, now I've gotten that off my plate. I'm going back to marketing and selling. So marketing and finding the next client while the service is still being done. Yeah. It's not about me. But that's just like a business thing. That's like a business thing of what it looks like to run a creative business. And that is also the agency model too. Like if you're running a creative agency, you likely are finding and outsourcing people who are providing the service while whoever's, hiring out, they're going and getting the clients and bringing in the work, and then you do the work for.
There's just levels to the
There's just levels to it. Yeah. And it to the point of consistency though, it takes consistency to be able to understand your business and what all you can actually do.
Yeah.
So like the example I'll give is like, I don't have the capacity to go out and shoot a Nike commercial yet. At all. But I know that, right?
Yeah.
I know the capacity that I have in my business, even with the people that I can like comfortably outsource to, and know that it's still a good product, it's still a good service I'm providing. But I've been doing it long enough to know what my capacity is. I've been doing it long enough and consistently enough to know what service I can provide at a good, like a really good, like not just good price point, but also like a good quality at the price point that we're at, and still show up and still not drop the ball. And so like now consistency looks like making sure that when I am outsourcing, they delivering what they should be delivering on time so I can deliver it to the client. You know, our meetings, the meetings that we have, and it's just like you said, it's just levels to it. Like it's consistency at a different level, but it's still consistency, right? So before it was just, when it's just me doing a project, like I have to be consistent with showing up, hitting those deliverables, hitting them deadlines, all the things for the client, while also maintaining the fact that I still need to post and market, and I still need to be visible in front of, you know, wider audiences and newer clients. I still need to be on this call to, you know, answer a question for a new client who got questions about a potential project.
Yeah.
So none of those things fall off. It actually just grows to the point of the question of like, what does consistency looks like? It looks the same, but at another level. And also there's a little bit of management in there too, with hiring independent contractors to shoot something or to edit. Like I'm also having to manage their workflow to make sure that their inconsistencies, if they have any, which ideally, like you don't want to work with people who do, but to manage inconsistencies across your team, like you don't want to be working with somebody whose consistency level ain't the same as yours.
Yeah.
Because it'll impact the client experience, right?
Yeah, definitely.
But that was a long answer for just like the consistency stays the same.
Yeah.
As a service provider who is also a business owner, and you got to run the business and like market and be out there with your content,
The whole thing.
it all stays the same. It just, as you grow, you just get better at it.
Yeah.
And it grows to the next level. And you're working with people who can also meet that level. But yeah.
Yeah, it's two things I was thinking about in that. So inconsistency, and tell me how you feel about these things. These things just popped in my head. These are two intangibles you need. You need preparation and perseverance.
Oh, for sure.
And in the preparation standpoint, you have, hey, I need to plan and understand what I need going into this, but I need that perseverance to know that everything's not always going to be as I think it should be. Like anything that's planned is probably not always going to go to plan. In the wedding industry, 100%, nothing on the timeline is ever on time.
Yeah.
Things happen. Sometimes people don't show up. Somebody was too drunk from last night. Like things get rescheduled. But as the creator in this aspect, you have to be prepared enough by the experience that you gain to be able to persevere through this moment and pivot. That's another one. We just adding P's today. But being able to pivot and say, okay, well, we can't do that. Let's do this.
Yeah.
Because this actually works better in these numbers. Like sometimes you have uneven things, and maybe this works out in the favor of. But how do you feel about that as far as preparation and perseverance in being consistent?
No, absolutely. I think you're absolutely on top of it. And there's a level of preparation that will allow you, I think, that will feed into that perseverance. So, you know, you can only prepare so much because there are uncertainties within anything.
Yeah.
There's never a 100% it went exactly as planned.
At all.
But what is amazing with preparation is that the preparation will prepare you and put you in position to handle the uncertainties and to persevere through them. So I do think you're like right on it. And like you said, that pivot, also knowing when to pivot, when to make the change, and when to just power through it and persevere, right? So I do think you're absolutely on it. And consistency, when you're always in a place, people say stay ready, you ain't got to get ready. Like when you're always in a place where you are preparing to some degree for your next, whether it's your next level, whether it's your next client, whether it's your next project, like personal project, whatever it is creatively, when you're always staying in a place of like learning and preparing for the next thing, I think it gives you a lot of patience and perseverance to either get through the uncertainties, or know how to pivot in the uncertainties. I think you're right on it with that. There's a level of consistency that you just naturally build when you're properly preparing, and that just makes everything else, like, it don't make it easy and smooth, but it makes it all doable. It makes it all like, okay, I can do this again. Like, I'm not gonna stop here now. It was hard, but on to the next.
Yeah, I think that's a big thing with like your goals. Your goals have to continue to evolve, which helps that journey of consistency be continuous. Because if we set a goal now, let's, for example, for this show, let's say we set a goal of 10, 12 episodes. All right, cool. But after we got 10, 12 episodes and we're on like episode 9 has been published, what is the next milestone or goal for that? How can we be consistent if we don't continue to evolve? So that evolution, because we clearly aren't from monkeys, and so that evolution is different. But the evolution of being able to continue to create things and reevaluate is an easy way to continue to be consistent.
Absolutely. And I think that is a major key with consistency. I know we're going to be wrapping up in a second, but if I could say anything, like, to get to that, and it goes back to those goals, like, eventually you're going to hit that goal that kept you consistent in the first place. So what's the next thing? What's the next level? It doesn't stop. It just evolves. You grow, you evolve. And as you grow and evolve, so should what you're aiming for. And that should be the fuel that keeps you consistent, keeps you growing, and keeps you going.
Yeah, growing and going. We using a lot of double words here. Pivoting and persistence and perseverance and going and growing. And listen, I don't even understand why people can't be consistent.
I have thoughts.
Let's hear them real quick.
We got enough time?
Let's see. Our set director, how much time we have, Coach? All right.
Okay. I have a lot of thoughts around consistency. Okay. You talked about this at the last episode. You said getting in your own way. And so I know in my orbit, in my like sphere of influence, and the people that I am either around or who follow me on my personal pages, I follow a lot of people who are very introverted, who are, just afraid. Like, I do think to some degree, fear is a big thing that keeps people from being consistent, keeps people from showing up. Because at the end of the day, that's what we're talking about with consistency. It keeps people from showing up. And fear has this debilitating effect where it stops you, it hinders you. And showing up is all about not being like, go, like, do it, right? So I think at the root of a lot of things is just like fear, and just being in your own way. I think you mentioned something like imposter syndrome at one, like you mentioned that we're on a break, but I know in my orbit, and something that I try to encourage people out of, especially people who are not as extroverted and who are not the, like, put me on the spot type of people, but they have just as much value to provide and just as much, things that they can be contributing to others around them. The biggest thing is just like getting past you, getting past your own stuff, your own fears, your own insecurities. Those are like my biggest ones that I see. I don't know. What do you think?
No, the inside of yourself and that imposter syndromeism is real. It's crazy because just to think that you got so many people with so many great gifts and talents, and just blatantly seem freakishly out of this world good at things, but you never watch the process of them continuing to do the thing and how consistent they were in developing that muscle memory, or that back end knowledge of saying, oh, I'm not thinking about how to do this because I just do this.
Yeah.
That's because I was consistent at continuing to do this. So you can't get to a point if you haven't worked on the process to reach that point.
Yeah.
So like the journey is so important. The process, the journey, all the things that people say are real, but and I think this is important as we wrap up. I feel like we at church and the preacher talking about I'm almost done, but don't ever get there. I think that's so important that when people are in a place of flow, they just start doing the things. And so the people that are in admiration haven't yet gained the confidence within inside themselves to do the thing. So if we keep showing up, we are going to keep getting better.
That's it.
And then that's only one intangible. What are you studying in order to improve your ability? So your learning capability and your self-worth and value is so amazing how great we can be as human beings by just doing.
And that was, you literally touched on the last thought that I had was, if it's not that you're just afraid to do it, or like I'm afraid to be on camera, stuff like that, a lot of times people will say, well, I don't know how. I don't know. But you hit on it, like that learning piece. Well, if you start and you get in a place of flow, you'll learn. And also, like, come to the content classroom.
Come to the content class. Does that mean that class is out of session?
Hey, y'all are dismissed. Class is out of session.